You all set? Great. All right, welcome everyone. Plimpton School Committee meeting for Monday, January 27th. Just as a reminder, this recording is for your own viewing pleasure and is not an official record. See, I make it different every time.
I like that.
And
It's creative.
Is it this one or next one that's the official budget hearing? Next one?
Next one.
Okay.
February is the public
Good,
budget
so we can
hearing.
just dive in.
Yep.
Joining us here today, we have Mrs. Shaheen and Mrs. Tartaglione. So, welcome. We'll try and make this as entertaining as possible, but considering we have a budget here, I can't promise anything. So, there we go. Did folks have a chance to take a look at the minutes?
A motion to accept the minutes from our December 16th, 2019 meeting.
I do have one amendment. The negotiations, we have it down as January 30th. It's January 29th. I think we were a little unsure that night, but it's Wednesday, so that's the 29th. So,
Motion to accept the minutes with the amendment.
do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. No school committee correspondence on my end.
Nor
Nothing
mine.
on yours. New business superintendent update.
Starting February 1st.
Literally hours away.
Yes,
I know.
And while we're there, do we have an update for the assistant, or are we doing that?
Do you want to talk
Sure.
about that?
Ryan Lynch will, his contract is being finalized as we speak.
This is real time here.
Yeah,
yeah.
no
It
one's-
is.
news happens in Plimpton.
And so it's anticipated that he will also begin on February
official.
1st. It's now official.
Breaking news.
It's now
Do-
official.
Do you want to just give a brief overview for the viewers on
Absolutely.
Ryan?
So Ryan has been a classroom teacher for close to 17 years, I believe. He did his undergraduate work at Notre Dame, and he did he received a master's degree from Brown University. He has been not only a classroom teacher, but a department head for K through 12, a department head for the secondary level, and has been an English teacher. Most recently, he served as the principal of Gates Middle School in Situate, Mass. And Ryan and I have worked together before, and I'm looking forward to working with him again.
Great. Thank you for that, and thanks to all of the extended school committee members and teachers and other personnel at the school that have been involved in the process of interviewing all of the candidates and then delivering Ryan as our single candidate for consideration at the union meeting. So it's great. Well done to both of you for
you.
being able to organize this and leave us in very good hands.
Yep.
We're still angry at you, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we have our annual report to do for 2019. I just wanted to take the opportunity in front of the committee to kind of walk through what we might want to include in that. Sorry guys, I didn't write it all for us yet. But just going through, last year we talked about the water treatment system. I assume I have to put a little update in there since we ran around on that. We also had an update in there about community preservation for the playground, so we should probably put an update in about where that is and where we think that's going. We had no generator issues this year, so that was good. And so is there anything else that folks from a committee perspective would like to see going in there other than the usual language that we put in?
Are you going to mention the transition of
I
our
should, yeah.
administrative leadership and the amount of time and effort that the community and the committee members, administrators, teachers put into that process to make sure that we were hiring the best possible person for our district and moving forward in the future?
Yep, that makes sense. And can I ask you to do a bit on the playground?
Yes,
Just-
Peter and
just-
I actually have a small presentation for
Good.
the committee this evening, but I don't mind writing it up as well.
Okay.
Do we want to mention our pursuit of the rural aid package and being part of that coalition and having some fruition of that effort?
I think we should.
It's not a bad idea.
I don't think it hurts for the community to know that we will chase dollars that benefit the students of the community, even if, you know, it puts in a little bit of extra work for some of us. And I just think it draws a narrative to the fiduciary responsibility, how seriously we take it here.
Mhm.
Would you be willing to put a couple sentences together on
Yeah, I
that?
think I could do that.
Okay.
You have that letter. I think I sent a copy of that
Mhm.
letter, so,
I do.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll just take a few notes so I have half an idea of what.
You have to ask me for in a couple of weeks.
Well, yeah, well, that's that. I wasn't going to put it that way. I was putting more on me, but yeah, okay. Good. Okay. So thank you for that. We'll get that pulled together. They haven't asked yet from the town perspective, but that email is forthcoming, I'm sure, and then I will be scrambling, writing that in other reports. So let's see. Well, so since we're talking about playgrounds, let's go for it.
So we have some new schematics, so Peter's going to bring those up for us so we can walk through it. Just to give the background on this again. Last year we had a preliminary design from Joe Dufour, and we brought those around when we went to see the Community Preservation Committee, and also when we were talking to CASA and other stakeholders in town prior to town meeting. And some questions did arise about the initial design of the playground. While it was ADA compliant and met with all federal and state regulations for accessibility, there was still concerns from the community that we make it even more accessible to all students here at the Dennett. So we asked Joe to go back to the drawing board, which did include a long 2.5-hour sit-down between myself, Peter, and Joe, with some of the input from the parents, but also Joe's understanding of the industry and what the final product looks like. He spoke about the students foremost. He walked us away from having a wheelchair swing, speaking to the fact that any schools where he's seen those put in, it's actually an isolating event for the student. They're not with their friends. It's a gated off portion of the playground. So Joe had a couple of ideas and offerings, and he brought forth those to Peter and myself, and we asked him to draw up some schematics for us. So this is one of his ideas. This would be the most cost neutral to us. We took away a few of the designs from the original, but that's called a sway fund, which you see off to the right of the screen. And there's a ramp going up there, so it's accessible to students with mobility issues, even students in wheelchairs. And it's also open to all of their peers and their friends here at school as well. And it's on some springs, and you literally can just shake it back and forth. And it's a good time. I've been on one in a fully accessible playground in Braintree. So he added that element design to it, and we originally had a transition, which means a child in a wheelchair would have to get out of the wheelchair to get onto the play structure. We asked him to consider putting more of a ramp onto the play structure so the kids, if they are wheelchair bound or if they're having severe mobility issues, could get up onto the play structure without adult assistance. You can see the 2 banks of swings that students at Dennett have been very adamant about keeping. Includes 2 accessible swings, but those will also be available to any student if there's not a student who needs them at the time. So this was a little bit more of a holistic idea, and it was pretty cost neutral. Peter, can we go to the next design?
Next design, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So you might recall that I mentioned adding this We Go Round design element here. If we added the We Go Round design element, I really think we'd have a playground that we could hang our hats on for the next 25 or 30 years. It's another fully accessible item. It has the rubber matting that a wheelchair or a student with mobility issues can get over to. It's perfectly flush with the ground. so you can wheel into it. I even saw videos of a student in an electric wheelchair on the outside spinning his friends on the inside.
Wow.
So the design is really unique. I haven't had the pleasure of seeing one in person yet.
So that spins?
Hmm?
It spins?
It spins.
Wow.
It's basically what we grew
Used
up with
to-
on the playground.
and we'd
They
hang
used to
on
have
and
the
we'd
big
fall
divots
off.
around it for
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah,
running
yeah,
and
yeah.
digging their feet in.
Yeah.
And it
Huh.
can go pretty darn fast, but there's ways to secure wheelchairs and mobility impaired students.
Wow.
So this really would bring the accessibility of the playground up quite a bit. They'd have access to the swings with their friends. The sway would be an item that any child could access. The we-go-round and even part of the playground jungle gym structure would be fully accessible to all students.
That's neat. Or
This
saw
is
one of
this
those.
is the item that if we added it on, Peter and I had mentioned to you at our last school committee meeting, that we would need to access this year's school choice funds in order to make sure we could afford this design right here. Right now, we have on hand $228,000 between the school choice funds we had as of July 1 of 2019. We had $134,000 school choice funds. The CPA was generous enough to give us $94,000. So that total is $228,000. This design that you're looking at right now, it would come in with a total price tag of $242,000, and that would include the excavation, the leveling, putting all the fill in, putting the sidings around, the rubber matting, all of the materials and the installation. So we would obviously have to be cautious looking at the 20% contingency. We might need to go back and talk with the CPC about this design change and make sure they understand where we are with the project and
Yep.
what items we're looking at. But this year, Peter and I were talking about it. We don't have the same amount of school choice students as we've had previously. Does that affect how much money we will get each month moving forward, Christine?
The way it's computed is the beginning of the year, they send you based on who they thought was gonna be here.
Right.
And then they will catch up they'll make an adjustment probably in December once they have all the October 1 numbers, and they'll adjust for it then.
Okay, so just based upon that, Peter, how many did we say that we have currently this
We
year?
went from 8 students to 6 currently.
So with the $228,000 we currently have in there, we could add the $30,000, which would be fully available by July 1st of this year, which would give us a total of $258,000 to work with for the project. So again, that's $258,000 to work with on the
contingency.
project. And the project as designed right here is priced at $242,000, which would still leave us money in contingency. We could have Joe write up the project in stages, though he wouldn't have to necessarily come back and restage every single time. So we could have a phase 1 to do the whole playground without the we-go-round. Once we make sure we haven't eaten into the contingency, we could have the phase 2 where he puts in the we-go-round. And even when he finishes the we-go-round, we could potentially look at that $16,000 we have left over, if we do, as a phase 3 of putting in more rubberized surfaces near some of the critical areas.
Okay.
Just ideas.
Yep.
Yep.
Can we go back into the numbers just a little more
Yep.
detail? So the 228 is, break that down for me again,
The
please.
228 is what we have on hand as of July 1st, 2019. So we already have had these funds in hand for about 6 months. We have a $134,000 on hand from school choice funds.
Yep.
The CPA
Yep.
was $94,000.
That includes the contingency?
That includes the contingency fund.
And so without the contingency, that would have been,
Well, the contingency was a 20% contingency.
right.
So roughly about $40,000.
36, I think, right?
Right, 36 is the actual number.
Okay. And then there's an additional 30 that we expect for the school year,
Right,
which puts us at the 258.
correct.
And this project, as built, is 242.
242.
Okay.
And the one other item that we are leaving out of this equation, that we might want to approach in-kind donations or members of the community who might be able to give us a hand, is a ramp that's ADA compliant that will lead from the building to this site, and the demolition and removal of the old playground. I have discussed it with a few people who said they would demo the old playground for the scrap metal.
Have we figured out where we would put this particular setup?
Yeah, Peter and I have looked at the schematics of the building with the layouts of the leaching fields and the septic system, and it would be further out back in the corner-ish area.
And how's the grade from the sidewalk down to it?
There's a pretty 4 or 5 feet down from the sidewalk level to that grass area there.
Because what is it? Isn't it? I forget what the ADA requirement is.
I don't want to quote it off. I think it's 10 to 1.
Joe indicated that the existing asphalt ramp that's there right now was put there for a reason. He seems to think, again, he wasn't measuring or anything, but at first glance he said this was very purposeful and why it was put here. So that might be the first
There's a
step.
ramp over there already.
But we might need to do some work on it to make sure it's wide enough, it has
Yep.
the right pitch. It might need a railing potentially with it as well. So there's some items we need to consider. But again, I think at this point, we're not taking any money from the operating budget.
Yep.
We're not coming back to the town asking for any additional funds from CPC or from capital. We're really trying to do this on our own, but we want to make sure what we put in was meeting the initial needs, which was safety, accessibility, and modernization. And the modernization, again, isn't because we want a 2020 playground. We want one that's developmentally appropriate for a K-6
Yeah.
building.
And the other material that's down there, is there any long-term concerns with that? I had heard somewhere there
The
was.
long-term concerns is that we will have to yearly be vigilant in measuring the depth of the wood chips. And we'll also have to be looking at compression zones to see if the wood chips are starting to lose some of their spongy effect.
Yeah.
Which is why I think that phase 3 part of the project of putting more rubberized material into the high-risk areas is something that we should consider when we start drawing up the RFP.
Okay. And do we have to do an RFP for this, or can we get off of a bid list?
So again, there's 2 ways to do this, and one is joining through the consortium, which I mentioned in some ignorance on my own part.
Right.
It's the state consortium that Plimpton can sign up to be part of, that Joe Dufour's company is currently a member of, and all the numbers off of that are basically state bid list numbers.
Right.
But we would have to join that group. I still think there might be some component of having to put it out to competitiveness, even within that. I'm not 100% clear.
Yeah, I'm not clear either, and I think we need to be, because they don't bid out police car. They go buy it. It's on a bid list. They go buy it. Dump truck. They go buy it.
And the way Joe mentioned it to Peter and myself is there were these 2 options. One was putting it out to bid, one was going through the consortium,
Yeah.
which is all verified and overseen by the state, and those numbers are basically state bid lists.
Right.
Each one of these drawings that he made up with us actually have the numbers that go along with that consortium database,
Right.
which we could always give to anybody who is questioning where these numbers are coming from.
My concern with putting it out to bid is it gets, it can go both ways. And usually when it goes the way that would be good for you, is you end up getting something cheap that isn't necessarily better. But the other side is that all of a sudden we could end up on the other side with, like we saw this happen with, I don't know, what was it, water? where it ends up being priced out before we even begin. But Christine, you had some.
I was gonna bring up the point of, at Silver Lake, we did use a group like a consortium for the lights,
Right.
but that only included the materials, did not include any installation.
So we would still have to put it out for bid
Right.
for the labor.
Right.
So
Okay.
I know you can carefully craft RFPs, so you get the type of craftsmen and people that you would like to show up to put in the good quality product. We're not looking for the cheapest playground. We're looking for a playground that's going to be safe for our students and accessible to all, that also meets the needs financially of our budget.
And then the we go round, is there any, I mean, sort of warranty and what sort of maintenance and so on and so forth? My guess is it's probably a little more maintenance than your old style one with a little bit of WD-40 underneath it every so often.
Right.
And we're in a different world. You know, we used to slide down slides in the summer and burn ourselves, so, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, these materials all do have a warranty with them. Parts and labor are included for a certain amount of time. I can bring you the warranty information next time we have a meeting. But that was one of the questions that Peter and I were asking about this. He also invited us to visit any of the playgrounds in the area that have been constructed, and he told us, I'll tell you ones that are 15 years old, 10 years old, 5 years old, and you won't be able to tell the difference based on looking at them, because our product is a quality product and we stand behind the product. You know, we have relationships with several towns that have used this company and these products, and they do hold up to the wear and tear of kids, what they're designed for, but they also hold up to the elements in New England. This is a company that builds playgrounds in New England. It's not a nationwide company that just, you know, is giving us the Florida package and it's going to rust starting next winter. So again, 4 years into this process of really getting down into the nitty gritty. This is a high quality product that will stand up, and they'll stand behind the product.
I did actually have an email from Mark Russo looking for an update. Maybe this is something that makes more sense for us to go give one in person, and we can talk about that after. I think they're meeting a few weeks out, but I think it would be good to show them where we are, if for no other reason than it's a big project, and I think they'd like it. But I do think, you know, it would be good to get their thoughts on the contingency, because as budgeted right now, we're already eating into the contingency. And so maybe we do need to phase it. But I do like the idea of having them, you know, particularly in the places where it's, and I would assume those are the landing zones for the swings, that, you know, putting more rubber in there over time wouldn't be a bad thing. Especially if people decide to change the what's okay thing going down the road, and all of a sudden you have a new non-compliant playground because they changed the rules.
And after the fact, changing of rules has already started happening in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So grandfathering is no longer a real thing when it comes to playgrounds in the Commonwealth.
Well, I think we're already have issues with that.
Well, that's just because no one has complained.
Right.
And
Okay.
Peter, you shared this with your school council, right?
School council saw all of these as well.
Right. And the feedback?
Very positive. Essentially the same question that I think everyone had at the beginning of the school year, so when's it going to be done? So I think that until you actually get into a project of this scope and magnitude, you don't understand all the planning that goes into it. I mean, I don't know, I certainly didn't. So I think that I had people at the beginning of school this year at open house, where's that new playground? We're not quite there yet. It's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is some of the people who are saying where the playground are the same people who are saying, wait, you know, you might want to change this. And I was like, that's a really good idea. But I don't think they realized how many steps backwards in the process we had to take to realize what those additional steps would look like. And again, this isn't going to happen again anytime any of us is still around here. So we got to make sure we do it the right way this time with these funds.
And our staff will be able to sneak preview on Wednesday, so don't give away your secrets, all right?
Okay. So on timing, what's our ideal time frame here?
So, with the blessing of the committee to use the school choice funds that will be fully available by July 1, 2020, Joe said that this is a project he can do this summer. We'd obviously have to do some paperwork. We'd have to make sure that we're following the proper process of do we need to put this out to bid? Can we go through the consortium? Will CPC support us into doing the 3 phases? This is something that could be ready for kids to use on day 1 of next year,
Okay.
realistically.
But we need to move some things along here in order to have the chance to realize that.
What do we need to move?
Well, so we need to, if we need to put together an RFP, we probably should start working on that.
Okay.
CPC meets on the 4th of February,
What day is that?
Tuesday.
Okay.
We can talk about it and
All right.
figure that out.
Yeah, I'm on DC.
Oh, that's
I might
right.
be back.
So if we ask for donations for demolition, is there any waivers or does anything have to be done?
We
Is
would
there
need some
any-
insurance, yeah.
I would think there'd be a real concern with insurance.
Yeah.
If they carry their own insurance, if we have people here dismantling all of that, we wouldn't want the town of Plimpton to be responsible for anything that went
Yeah.
wrong.
So
We
if there-
used waivers for the park, for construction on the park. And so it's something maybe we can explore as to whether we
Yeah,
could go that same
The town may have
route.
that already, if they've already used it for
Yeah.
the park, they may have
I mean,
waivers
Right.
that
you
they
know,
So
we-
we'd have to get,
Yeah.
selectmen's approval, they would, who's?
Oh, I think I talked to the town administrator about
Yeah.
that, but that's how we built the boardwalk,
Right.
with waivers.
And I was even thinking of some of what we did with the lakes over at
Yeah, I
Silver
was just
Lake.
curious.
Yeah.
Some people who volunteered and came in, who had
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
not just thinking of letting some random
Mm.
dads come down with blowtorches to take them
Yeah.
out.
But
Should be
the
perfect. I can see it now.
big trucks
Be your
and
first
chains.
story. Be good.
Big trucks
It'd
and
be great.
chains. But just to clarify, none of this needs to be gone to build this.
It doesn't have to be gone, but we would have to make it inaccessible to students. Once we start this project, we are no longer covered by any even claim of grandfather with the
Correct.
equipment that's current.
Yep.
The liability would be astronomical.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
It looks great.
Yeah, it looks great.
I like it. I like this design much better. It looks really good.
I don't know how your budget's going to stack up to this, though. It's just much
Not,
more
not,
exciting.
I'm nowhere near as exciting. No.
Okay.
Jill's gonna sing and dance though, so it'll be okay.
Thanks, Peter, for putting that together. Appreciate it. If you could send me that when you have a chance, just so I could maybe bring it to CPC with me, that would be great.
Yeah, I think we should circulate that to the committee.
Peter put that together for me on short notice,
Yeah.
so I really appreciate it.
Great. Excellent. Okay. So that's the high point. I assume the update on power lines is none? Yeah. It's their power lines. Anyways, we'll get that fixed at some point. Standing committees, administrative reviews had some work, right?
Yes. Well, Mike's on it. Admin review?
Yeah,
Contracts and contracts and contracts, right?
we had a lot of contracts.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest one was Brian's, we did that, and we did Jill's.
And then some of the office folks.
Yep.
Yeah, we,
Yep.
ongoing, I mean, so everything's clean now.
Everything's
so-
clean. Yep.
Okay. Negotiations, as we talked about with the minutes,
Yep.
that's Wednesday.
Wednesday.
So we will kick that off. Union 31 has been busy as well for all of the same reasons as the contracts have been
Yep.
busy.
Yep.
That's
And
what
the
we.
shared cost budget was
and the
voted.
shared cost budget was voted, and we'll be talking a little bit about that in context of our budget in just a little bit.
Plus contract, too. It's coming up.
I think that's not done yet, though. That's
No.
out for,
It isn't out yet. It's
isn't out yet? Okay, that's right. PAC,
So we have a meeting on February 6th down at the academy. Again, the Hatch building is no longer PAC property. So we're moving the administrative offices down to the academy in Plymouth, which is a much nicer venue for a meeting.
right.
They did put out their annual report and their audit, and everything looks great. Clean findings from the audit, and the annual report is available if you'd like to look through it, and I can walk you through it if you have any questions.
Okay. Policy, we finished those policies,
Yep.
didn't
No, thank you.
we? Okay, excellent. Out on a high note. Nothing on capital improvement legislative?
So the budget has come out from the governor, and I was lucky enough to have lunch with Senator Lewis on Saturday, and I had some time to ask him some questions about our $30 per pupil that we will be receiving. So many of you may have heard there's $1.4 billion extra dollars for education over the next 7 years, which is about $300 million this year, and we're getting about $6,000 here in Plimpton for the Dennett Elementary School. When I asked Senator Lewis about this, moving into the legislative branches, he does not think that that number will go up at all because of the dramatic increase investment in other schools across the Commonwealth. 57% of the towns and cities in Massachusetts will only be receiving the $30 per pupil minimum increment. It's 43% of the state that will be receiving the vast majority of the $300 million in extra funding for education. And definitely going towards schools that needed that funding, low-income populations, English language learner populations were the focus of this legislation and the money moving forward. He did try and allay some of my concerns by telling me we are going to see some of the monies from the Student Opportunity Act in the form of increased circuit breaker funding, because transportation will be counted as part of your reimbursed circuit breaker funds. But that will be rolled in over, 3 years. And the legislature plans on fully funding their charter school mitigation fund, but that will take 4 years for them to roll out and get back up to 100%. And I did ask if this was subject to appropriations, and of course,
Yes, it
Senator
is.
Lewis said everything is subject to appropriations. So for now, we have our $30 per student from the state, and luckily we have a supportive town who understands what we do here for our students, and the investment is a wise one. I'm going to be going down to DC this week to meet with the congressional delegation, and everyone in DC is in DC right now. So I will have no problem meeting with our representatives from the legislature, and even Senator Warren's office said that if she is not available, Senator Warren has one of the only Senate aides who is 100% devoted to education in all of the Senate. A lot of them split them up between like the arts and the humanities and education. She has an aide who's 100% devoted to education, and I will be speaking to either Senator Warren or her aide about the Title I funds and the diminished amounts that we're seeing here in Plimpton and in Silver Lake and in Massachusetts in general. Right now, federal funds do make up 6% of all the dollars that are spent on education in the Commonwealth, but it is a diminishing figure. And like we talked earlier with the Rural Aid Fund, we need every single dollar we can get into the school system, so I'll be fighting for that this week.
And I think while the, certainly the $30, it's one of those, well, we'll try not to spend it all at one time. I guess it does speak to some benefit as to how good the school is. And that, we aren't determined to have that significant need as 43% of the other. So,
Right.
it doesn't help what we're about to talk about with the budget,
Right.
but it that is something we should be proud of. It doesn't help, but it's at least there.
I was very interested when I found out that we are in the majority of the towns and cities in the Commonwealth. That 57% of towns and cities in the Commonwealth are only receiving the $30 per pupil.
Okay. And single signature warrants.
Yes, John, thank you. You came into our office on December 22nd and signed 6 warrants totaling $96,693.55. For the next few months, the whole committee will have the benefit of signing. Thank you.
Thanks,
And
John.
thank you, John.
I think we know where the $6,000 went.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we have an update from CASA since Amy's not here, so we will go to you, Mr. Benito.
Thank you. As you can see from my principal's report for January of this year, total population is 214 students. There's been some fluctuation as some families have transitioned in and out. That's where we're at right now. We do have some important things happening in January and February. Notification went home to families that yearbooks are available for purchase from now until March 31st. We had one former Dennett student come back to speak to our grade 6 students at our honor roll breakfast on January 7th. It was an awesome time to have one of our former students come back and talk about her experiences in middle school, high school, and keeping our kids interested in their academic careers moving forward. So it was awesome.
Yeah.
Great attendance from our families. CASA had their winter festival last Friday. Midterm progress reports went home today. We have our family team night coming up on Thursday. The theme is It's a Small World. That's our tech ed and math night. It's always a wonderful night. The amount of staff that come back to be a part of that is incredible. It's very well received, and we thank them for their time. Not that this is going to happen, but we did post a snow date for the family team night, but I think
No
the
snow.
weather's going to be
Nope.
in
It's
our
all set.
favor.
I controlled it this week. It's all good.
Very
Got
good.
this.
It's hard to believe, but we're already talking about another break coming up. We have our winter vacation from February 17th to the 21st. That following Monday when we come back is an in-service day for the teachers and staff, so there'll be no school for students that day. And that evening, we will be back here at 5 o'clock for another school committee meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Christine?
I like it.
Get my notes out. Well, in your package tonight, you do have a financial, a nice buff-colored financial statement. It's pretty uneventful with our budget sustaining us through the year. We're doing pretty well. There are only 2 deficits on the whole financial if we go to the very end. Under special education, there's a deficit under transportation for $11,000, and as well a deficit under tuition for $20,598. The deficit in tuition will be absorbed by circuit breaker once all funds are received, and the area as a whole will be able to absorb the deficit in transportation. And then in out-of-district vocational, we're currently projecting a surplus of $45,283. Thank you, that's it, unless there are any questions.
I just want to say thank you again for keeping track of the numbers and making it so easy to understand for all of us. This is the 6th year out of 6 years I've been on the committee where we're projected to be returning some funds of some sort to the town. Again, this is the time of year where we often consider adding to the special ed stabilization fund. So something we may want to bring up with FinCom when we meet with them.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to ask, but okay. No, I mean, I think the agreement that we have in place is that we add to it. I mean, it will only be a small
Small amount.
increment,
It's
but
almost fully funded. There is
it's pretty much
$1,112 for it to be fully funded.
right. So I mean, we will mention that as part of our thing, but I was just going to prepare the article and put it in there because it's small incremental money and
Right.
it's just
Good.
it will help someday,
Yeah.
Yep,
even at its
unfortunately.
tiny little percentage. Which maybe that's something else you can mention to the.
I did bring that up with
Because
Senator
it's-
Lewis, of moving that from 2% of the operation budget to 5% of the operation budget. It's something that they're looking at potentially doing in the next Modernization Act.
Yeah.
It's
where it
2%
really-
of net school spending.
Net school spending.
Right. I just don't understand why they want to put such a small limit. I mean, it's.
But when he explained to me why they weren't moving on it, is most of the towns that are putting money in there are towns that are desperate for money for special ed.
Right.
So typically, the inflow goes directly to the outflow and it never gets funded. So there's not a lot of
But-
other towns right now who are asking to increase that number because not a lot of towns can even meet the 2% threshold.
Well, at some point, they should realize it just sounds stupid. 2% is ridiculous, you know, for any town. Because if
Agreed.
it's real money for another town, then that means they have the potential to be spending so much more.
And I asked if
And
there was
it's-
any way that they could be matching funds as well from the state, sort of like,
To encourage it, yeah, of some sort.
even if it's only a 20% or something,
Right.
just to incentivize.
Anything. It just doesn't make sense to me why you would put such a low limit on it. I mean, it just, because if no one's, you put a higher limit, if no one's using it, no one's using it. It doesn't hurt anything to have it there. It only helps those that are able to fund it, and it also is a type of thing that if and when, depending on the cycle of students moving through, you have a dip in that spending, that's an opportunity where the town could, instead of bringing down the budget, take that extra, push it in there the
Yeah.
next year, so that they can help to offset. Yeah, I don't know. I just can't get past how dumb it was at 2%, but I will let it go. Now. Okay.
Hi.
Hi. Shall we dive in?
We shall dive in. So this is our fifth budget that we have presented. So this is my fifth and final budget, I guess. Before I begin, though, I do...
Is that why you're smiling?
Yes and no. So I did just want to say, you know, and again, I don't know if people completely understand the amount of work that goes into building budgets on our business manager's part. I mean, it is astounding the amount of hours and time it takes. As you know, when we're building the budget, there are many, many people involved. You know, we begin always with Mr. Venito. We spend a lot of quality time together. Luckily, he's a great person to spend time with, so it's not a burden. We also spend time with Melissa Farrell, who takes, you know, puts together the documents and did a presentation on the curriculum materials that are needed. Steve Pello puts together the technology presentation. He comes in, he puts together his documents. Marie Grable puts together special education. It's multifaceted. There are many people who make a budget work. And the good news is we have great people who do that. So again, this year we put together a folder. So on the left side, if you don't mind, just to so you understand what's in here, you have the timeline that we are currently following. The thing I want to point out is at your next school committee meeting in February is the public budget hearing. So that's already posted legally, and so that is all scheduled. We moved it to February because we had one time in March where we got a snowstorm issue, and the budgets have to be voted in March to meet the state law for the town meetings. So for some of our districts, well, all of them, but it depends on the dates. So we moved it back to February. That way we have hopefully the opportunity to get it in before we run into problems with it. So the next thing that you have is our K-6 enrollment. And you can see Plimpton is sort of that goldish color. In 2010, you were in case 6, you were at there we go. Thank you. I'm like, that is so wrong. Thank you. Excuse me. Don't mind me. I'm fine. It's the orange. Thank you, Christine. See, she has my back. That's what you need. You need an administrator that has your back. Thank you, Christine. I was having a heart attack here. The orange is 245 in 2010. We are currently at 226. That's up from our low of 199 last year. In 7 through 12, we were at 2013 and 10, and we are now down to 196 on the secondary level. On the back side is the homeschool enrollment. From 2010 through 2020. We had 3 students in 2010 that were homeschooled. We currently have no students in Plimpton that are homeschooled. And then for the secondary level, there was 1 in 2010 and 0 for 20. The other thing that we added this year, and this is a new graph, is students that are leaving the district because of school choice. So these are our students who are going to another school district for school choice. In Plimpton, it has remained very steadily at 1. Last year there were 2. So it's a pretty small, well, 3 and 18, I guess. It's been a pretty small number, but again, it is funds that we are losing, and in Plimpton, we definitely want to keep all of the students we can. So it's just another piece to be aware of. The numbers for charter schools at this point are not in here, so we'll make sure to get that to you for next month. Okay, those numbers are just coming out for the number of students who are leaving for charter schools. You have Marie's presentation on special education. She did a very thorough presentation on that. You have the meeting the needs of diverse learners, our basically our focus, our shared district focus, and you have our student enrollment. So the left side are your reference documents that will hopefully give you any information that you may need and will be helpful as we go forward. The first section on the right is the budget. The second section is Pete's write-up, which will help explain it, and then you have Melissa's Title I with the curriculum materials and Steve's technology. Okay, so to begin the budget, when we built the budget, we came in with a level service budget. You may remember when Marie presented, she talked about the need to add a special education teacher, that we have a small group of students that we need to add a staff member to best meet their needs. So that is not included in this budget. So we can talk about that a little bit at the end. We know what the impact of that will be, but that is not included. This is level service, which is just bringing back everybody we have. We have a teacher who is retired. We have taken savings for that teacher, so that's already been removed from this budget. We put in 65% for circuit breaker reimbursement, so we're pretty much already starting right where we would like to end. We may get a little bit more than that, but I would not recommend ever putting more than 65% in for circuit breaker reimbursement. It's just too chancy. As Christine mentioned, we will be returning $44,000 to the town from out-of-district vocational. I have some ideas that I'd like to present. If last year John did a great job of putting together some warrant articles, instead of all that money going back to the town, that some of it could be used to reduce the budget costs this year, since that money has already been given to the schools from the town.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we've historically heard from both the selectmen and the finance committee is that if there are items that need to be funded that are one-time expenses that are only periodic, they would prefer not to see them in the budget. If it's something that's every other year, then maybe that stays in the budget. But if you're talking about something that's every 5 years or every 10 years, or like we purchased a copier,
Right.
that going into the budget is not where they want to see it, because
Exactly.
then the next year we don't have to purchase that copier, and then the percentage increase looks lower when
Right.
it really isn't.
Right.
So that's always something that we should look to, and since these funds are going back, it doesn't put the burden. The funds aren't back. I mean,
Right.
the funds, I guess we should really say, the funds that could be available to give back to the town is the $44,000.
Right,
And
right.
so working with the town, it's a good way to do that if we can get it in under this year.
These are, yes, so we have some ideas of things that could work for that. The other thing that's in this budget is Christine has updated for all utilities, and the shared cost budget, which was voted, I don't know, sometime within the last couple weeks ago, is included in here. So the voted share cost budget is in here. So this is inclusive of everything that we have. So for the regular day budget, it is an increase of 3.22%, which is coming in a little bit higher than we have had. There's a couple reasons for that. One of the biggest ones is our bus bid. We are going out to bid for our bus contract, and that has not actually gone out yet, and we put in a number because we just don't know what it's going to look like. So we put in a placeholder. Hopefully we'll get lucky and that number will not be that high. If we're unlucky, obviously it'll be higher. But hopefully, that number will work its way out. Although 3.22 may sound high, it's actually only an increase of $78,949. So it's not that much money, it's just the budget numbers are so much smaller in Plimpton than the other districts. So it's not that huge. The special education increase is 3.25%. Most of that is is due to transportation. As Marie has spoken to some of the difficulties we have had with some of our transportation companies. So, and again, that increase is not that much money. The issue is really just that it's a small number. So that increase is, quick math, about $35,000. The vocational education, as you know, we can accept students through April 1st. So at this point in time, we have spaces reserved for some students, but they have until April 1st. If you get closer, I gotta stop saying we, sorry. If you get closer to April,
It's still we until Friday.
if you get closer to April and you feel like you'd like to try and take more of a cut, you can. Remember, if somebody does move into Plimpton, you own that cost during the school year.
Right.
If they're already enrolled in a vocational school somewhere else. So right now, we have some money. We did reduce out-of-district vocational a bit this year. We felt safe doing that. But if, the next 6 weeks go
Yep.
by, you're going to need to keep an eye on that. Christine will keep an eye on that to see if we have enough money.
Did that come from like 8 months of a student or 2 months of a student? It's not a full student note, is it?
No.
The amount that I reduced,
Yes.
when I budget for transportation, there'll be a little leeway there just
Right.
because of the different methods I have to use to transport students. So a lot of it's estimating. I know what tuitions are. Transportation isn't quite as firm. We had students that didn't go, so what we ended up doing is we have 3 returning students. We believe we'll have 3 returning. We had 1 graduate, so 3 that will continue on. And we left enough space for 2 more students.
Okay.
That was
Okay.
kind of, so it was actually, we had enough for 2.5 and we reduced it by the half.
Thank you.
They don't
That
like
makes
us when we
sense.
cut students in half, so we thought we'd go with the 2.
Well, when we have a student move in, that we
Generally
didn't
frowned
account
upon.
for,
Exactly.
It could be a half a year. So
It
that's
could be,
why I
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
know
yeah.
if that's where
Yeah.
Christine came up with the number.
Well, we just never know the transportation, to be honest with you. I'm being fresh, but it's, we
I
don't
gotcha.
know like how many people, like if Middleborough's going to still work with us, if Duxbury's going to have kids going to the same one, that impacts the cost of sending the students.
Because we
Transporting.
share all of those resources with some of the surrounding towns, and it works, as long as it works.
As long as
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
it works until it doesn't.
Exactly. So if the committee were to support adding a special education teacher into the budget, we anticipate that would be about a $60,000 cost. It would go into, in Plimpton, the way they vote the budget is the special education part of the budget is all the special education costs within the building as well as out-of-district costs and out-of-district tuition. So it's anything within that category. So it's the teachers and staff within the brick and mortar of the building as well as out-of-district costs. So if we added that $60,000 into that section, it would increase special education to 8.79%. If we added $60,000 in there, and it would make the overall increase be 4.35% instead of 2.71. So, just so you know. Now, if the committee was interested, some ideas for that 44,000, okay, that we're returning to the town, if we wanted to try to move forward some of those warrant articles. Some thoughts that we had is, and Pete refers to one of them in here, the cistern needs to be pumped, inspected, pumped, whatever it is that they do with cisterns. That's $5,000. That happens once every 5 years. Seems like that would be a good thing
That
to
shouldn't
move
be in the
out.
budget.
That should not be in the budget, but we need, but
We need to-
again, we
no,
need
no,
to do a
that-
warrant article, so that would
yeah.
be $5,000 we could remove from the budget if the.
And that's
if-
currently in the budget?
It is currently in the budget. All of these things are currently in the budget. Yep, so these are, allow us to lower the percentage
Mm-hmm.
increase, which would be helpful for adding that special education teacher, would
Mm-hmm.
lessen the burden, I guess. There are document cameras in this budget currently, and there are 12 of them in here at $700 each for a total cost of $8,400. Pete did a survey of the staff and how they use document cameras, and they are used daily, basically in all the classrooms. This might be a helpful reference guide as you brought this forward. You and I spoke a
Yep.
little bit about this, so we put together some information
Thank you.
for you, and that might be helpful. So that would be $8,400 that we could, and you and I can check with all these numbers if you like, or Jill can.
Yep.
If for $8,400, so that would be $13,400 that could come out of the budget. There are a couple of other ideas.
Just
Sorry.
just for a second. So, but if we look at the technology budget, it hasn't really gone up with them in it. So I guess this is one I think we want to think a little bit about, because it seems that every year we have sort of different technology that we need to upgrade within the building. So I guess, do we end up hurting ourselves by taking that out, because next year that the budget could jump up because we need to replace X number of Chromebooks, because just cycling through, there's a certain amount of, just like textbooks or anything else, there's a certain amount of that that's happening every year in an incremental fashion. And I just want to toss that, just make sure we're thinking that through, because I don't see a big increase in his budget when we're looking through this. It's really, it didn't actually technically go down by $30 or something like that.
Well,
Or is
one of the
is that
things,
not new to when we were speaking before?
we needed to do some trimming to get this down a little bit. So Mr. Pello is really a good team player, and he works within the amount of money that is available. I don't disagree. The concept to me is always to try to bring a budget to the town that they could maybe afford and support. I do believe bringing in a special education teacher is the priority this year for the building. So trying to balance that need versus some other things was my goal, when I brought it forward. You may disagree. Certainly, we can leave things wherever you wish. My goal is always to bring forward a budget that I believe the town can understand and accept.
Absolutely.
And the priority to me is always the kids. It's always going to be the children.
I'm tossing this out there just so that we think about it from a
Yep.
long-term perspective.
Sure.
And I think the whole discussion about, this additional position is one that we have to be able to put into context about what it's going to cost us if we don't do it as well.
Right.
That will be part of it.
The annual report from PAC has numbers of what it costs for all the collaboratives and the CRO, which is the whole Southeast Massachusetts, and for private placements as well.
All right.
The cheapest is still PAC, if you're gonna go out of district at all. And we had to raise our prices 4 years ago because we had been trying to really keep the increases to a 2 or 3%. When you're trying to educate students with significant needs, sometimes the increases are more significant. So we are above $50,000 a year to educate a student at PAC, and that's not including the transportation costs.
Exactly.
So a single student who goes to our collaborative, that is the cheapest alternative for us, would be equivalent to the cost of a teacher.
Yeah.
Now, I know Marie has set up some in-district, out-of-district placements.
Yeah.
But she's building out programs that have a capacity need, and her goal has always been to try and keep the kids as close to their local community as possible. And she's indicating to us right now, we have a cohort of students who could stay in Dennett and could benefit from, a teacher being here in their home-based school with their peers, with their family members, with their neighborhood friends. I don't think it would be very hard to explain
Agreed.
where we might end up if we don't do this.
Yep.
Agreed.
Obviously, the number with Joy's crafting of where we might be able to use that $44,000 might help us in making that argument.
Agreed.
Because I know a 4.35 is too scary for us to kind of look at totally.
Well,
So
yeah.
I'm interested in hearing where you go
Right,
with this.
right, and the other thing, and I know you're all aware of this, because Dennett is so small, you have to be particularly cautious and conscious of how information is presented, because it's just such a small number of people, and everything is just too identifiable in Plimpton. But I think I think this could be a helpful way of doing it. Again, I won't be here, but I just, my goal is to leave things as clean and as far along the process as possible, to hopefully ease the transition. I know I'm leaving everything in great hands, but it's complicated. It's
Well,
really
it is.
complicated. And I want to, last year we did a great job, you did a great job of putting together sort of, this to this, to, kind of a thing. And, we've done a little bit of groundwork for it. So that was sort of, I'm just throwing some ideas out. It's sort of like you throw the spaghetti against the wall, some sticks, some doesn't. I understand your concern about technology. I'll tell you a Kingston story, if I may. So every year, the town of Kingston, as part of their free cash, gives money to the Kingston School Committee to offset the technology costs. And it's always been something that has been a concern for the Kingston School Committee, especially Eric Crone, the chair, because Eric is all about technology. I mean, that's his background, that's his life. So they have done it every year. Ranges anywhere from 50 to 100,000, depending on how the town is. They reduce their budget by taking money out of free cash. So, again, I understand what you're saying, and the concern has always been, if or when they ever stop that, boy, is that technology budget going to look bad in terms of the increase. But, they have been consistent with it, and it has worked, and it has sort of been able to keep the budgets at a point that, money's in different places, so you sort of have to make use of what's there.
I mean, I think that I only bring it up for this particular one just so that we think it through. I would present it as certainly it is an option. Certain of these things, cleaning the cistern inspection and repair and whatever, that one we have to do.
Yeah.
Right? Safety of the most expensive physical asset that the town owns.
Right.
Is imperative on that actually having water in it.
Yeah, that helps.
Right? Second, I think it, because that operates on such a periodic basis, it's a no-brainer that it belongs outside.
Yep.
This piece, it may just be better to have it as an offset, to spend the money because we need to sort of soften this. But what I have found in my years of doing this with school committee now for 6 years, as well as in town for almost 20, is that particularly the committees that we have now for Selectmen and FinCom, they're very capable of being able to think things through.
Absolutely.
And they will appreciate understanding that you have to spend a little bit in order to save money.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I think that's one of the big pieces here. And yes, we certainly want to make sure that we are careful of how we explain it, but I don't think we need to get to specific numbers, but things like how many students would a teacher like this reasonably be able to be able to deal with? And then, just understanding that range. We're at 50 plus transportation, and we can come up with an average number of per student transportation to not the crazy, but to just other area collaboratives as to what that would cost gives you a pretty decent range as to what you're dealing with. And I think that's a pretty powerful piece. Doesn't mean that we don't have a student at some point that starts out with this and then still needs more. That's what happens. But I think they'll hear that. So, now that I've completely derailed your presentation.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay.
Shall we move on to
Yep,
the
no,
other
absolutely. I
ideas?
just, I actually wanted may I have the Melissa Farrell one that you have instead of this one? This was not the one I was hoping was in my packet. The colored one, the yellows and pinks, the pretty colors you and I were looking at earlier.
I have it too,
That one, blues and yellow, sorry. So the other option to me, and again, I can put together if it's helpful, sort of a list to you, is in your packet is a page from Melissa
Yep.
Farrell. I actually like this one better myself, but that's okay. So there's a couple textbook purchases that I think also make sense. And it is involving social studies. So in 6th grade and in 3rd grade, we're going to be making a total of about $10,000 worth of purchases. They are, again, those sort of one-time purchases. You may or may not know, but the social studies curriculum has been updated. So this is something that Melissa has been working with the teachers to update. So again, that is a one-time purchase.
And that's in the budget currently.
It's currently in the budget. All of these things are currently in the budget. I'm not giving you any ideas. I'm not adding anything. This would be
No.
a way of subtracting from the budget. And then the other thing is she's got some other instructional resources and some other materials that could be taken out. To me, where I guess I would start is to ask the town, are they comfortable with allowing us to make that transfer? Because what we would do is we would need to expend that money by June 30th, I believe is the way it works for the town. So they just do a transfer. So we would need to be prepared to, because it's kind of a quick turnaround from town meeting to June
Yep.
30th to get those things
Yep.
done. If they are interested / willing to work with us, we could look at reducing the budget with very specific targeted items as close to that 44,000 as they're comfortable with. Whether it's 30,000, whether it's 25,000, whether it's 40,000. I mean, I have no idea what the town's comfortable
Okay,
with.
so if-
I don't know their current status.
So so that creates.
Does that help?
4. Yep. So conceivably, if you went up as close as you could to that 43, you would end up with a 3.2 or something?
Yeah, it would make a big difference. It would make a big difference. I mean, I think it would bring the overall reduction down to a number that feels better,
Yeah.
to the town. To come in with an overall increase that high, I think would be difficult for Plimpton. I know it's justifiable, but I just think, to go from where we've been, we've done such a nice job with budgets to, more than, double the increase. I mean, I think our
Yeah.
increases lately have been around 2, if I remember right, or under 2.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been
well,
astounding.
And we have.
And we know
I
that
think,
was difficult.
Reminded
Yes.
folks at every opportunity, to the point I'm sure they're tired of hearing it, that this, we have done this to some extent because of careful planning
Absolutely.
and all
Yep.
of that, and unfortunately, despite all of our great efforts and brains and all of that, just dumb luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
We've been
Yeah.
we've been very even and consistent, both with special ed,
Yep.
with particularly out of district. We've had things come in and things come out, and so
Yep.
that number has pretty much stayed.
Yep.
We haven't had to move money to deal with anything from the
Nope.
voc area or
Nope.
special ed,
Nope.
and that's luck. But when we have an opportunity to have more, not to control, but to have more control,
Yep.
it's one of those things that we'll have to have the discussion with the town about how they feel on it. But I would my guess is I would be surprised that this wouldn't resonate with them.
I would think so also. And again, that was part of why, Pete and I spent some nice time together this afternoon. And, we're really working at trying to figure out what's going to make sense. I've already reached out to Steve, I've reached out to Melissa. To me, the next step, and I can get a list started, and,
could, that would
I'm
be
sure
great.
Joe will be
Yep.
able to continue it. But if we know what amount the town is willing to work towards, we can sort of work the budget backwards, to do that. And then that way, Joe and Christine will have direction for version 2, which way to go with, to know which way to go. The first step, to me, I guess, would be if the school committee wished to vote to bring forward a version 2 budget with the special ed teacher in it. That would be the first recommendation that would be helpful to them.
Yeah, I think there's some other items we'd like to go through the budget as
Yeah.
well, but I'll make the motion to bring forth a version 2 with at
Okay.
least that and maybe
Okay.
some other changes.
Okay. Okay.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then if we can put together that list,
Yep.
even as a draft,
Yep,
sooner
will
rather
do.
than later, I
Yep.
would like to.
And considering I have 4 days, you got it.
I would like to, and there's the smile again. I would like to reach out and have a discussion with
Yep.
the FinCom chair.
Absolutely. Yep.
I already touched base briefly with the
With Nate?
with the chair of the Board of Selectmen,
Okay.
just on some high level stuff. But
Okay.
I'd like to be able to have a chat with both of them, just to get sort of level set. My guess is and knowing the makeup of the FinCom this year is that they're very much going to want to be able to sort of understand and see all the pieces and what the levers are to pull
Yep.
to come to that. And I'll also talk with them about, they should make sure to schedule an appropriate amount of time, and I'm sure for Silver Lake as well, but not to rush that. Because if you get through it quicker, then great, everyone can leave earlier, but we should make sure we have enough time to kind of talk
Yep.
through all the different pieces. I don't think it's as simple as years past.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. So, okay. Well, I would be happy to put that list together for you.
Okay.
And again, it's sort of that spaghetti at the wall. These will just be some ideas, and I'll make sure these are all one-time things. Like the cistern, like the document cameras, like the,
Yep.
some of those textbook purchases. So they would be things that would make sense, and I
Yeah.
would think would make sense
Well,
to the
I would
towns.
highlight though, with the document cameras that yes, it's a one-time purchase, but we periodically have one-time purchases in technology, and we kind of have them every year.
Yeah, yeah.
So this would
Yeah.
tend to show a pretty decent reduction in the tech budget,
Right.
which is likely not going to stay next year.
Right.
But it's a lever to pull if we want to get the whole thing down and deal
Yep.
with it for this year, and then figure out next year. I don't know, next year.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
So,
So what else do we want to talk
so I
about?
just wanted to touch base again on the transportation on the bus line again.
Page 4.
Page 4, right, so when do we anticipate seeing?
We are hoping very soon. I'm just trying to collect as much information as possible, and I hate to just say a date, but our goal is it's short term that bill will be out.
Any
And-
day before February vacation. Like,
I believe I could
ballpark?
guarantee before February vacation.
Okay.
But I'd like, in a perfect world, I'd love to say very soon. We just need to make sure we can coordinate.
Don't let him bully
The
you.
timing of the
Don't you mess with my Christine.
the states, because we have to advertise with the states, we need, and that's every Thursday, we just have to make the right cutoff for that to be published
Well,
in the
we-
Goods and Services Bulletin.
And we kind of pushed you from the union perspective to do this a little differently this year. So that's
We've
an
collected
added
lots and
added
lots and
challenge.
Lots of information to try to make this the best possible solution for the region and the union.
So, have you heard anything from them at all? I'm just curious on the number, that's all. I'm looking at all the years up until this year. So, you typically see just a $5,000 increase, and then we're jumping up to 17, so.
I want you to know that I am extremely cautious with
No, I know
something
you
like
are.
this.
I was just,
And-
I didn't know if there's something else happening.
No, what I have done is I've built in what we've been having for increases in this current contract, and then I've added an allotment. My hope is that this will more than cover
Okay.
what happens. I think, actually, between Joy and I think she actually thinks it's gonna be a chunk lower, but I'm,
And then is there
Overcautious.
a set date that they're supposed to have their contracts into us, or?
we
does it-
specify that, and we have found that, we have heard feedback that we requested too quickly, so they don't always get the chance to do everything they wanna do, so they have to kinda estimate a little on the high side, so we're gonna try
Right,
to
so-
open that window a little so that they have the time.
I guess what
they
I'm
need to
getting at
do
is,
it.
so, we have to prepare our budgets at a timeline. So, when we do the next contract, or whatever, is there any kind of language we can put in there to say, hey, listen, at a certain point, we need a hard stop on this, and because we gotta get our numbers in.
We can go out to bid anytime we want, so the timing, we dictate the timing. It's just unfortunately, the other things that happen around this time that my capacity is tapped. So we've tried to find resources to help us make this happen sooner than later, so that we can have concrete information in our budget and hopefully make some changes before we move forward.
So some information that might be helpful. So when we go out to bid, it gets posted in a Thursday paper, so that was a piece that she does. In the past, we've gone out for 2 weeks to bid. What we've heard is that's too short, so we'd probably go out to bid for 3 weeks. The concern that I have had and have
Bus companies
expressed.
said that?
Say that again, please?
There's only one company, right? I mean,
No, well, no,
feedback from
Well,
other
we're
companies,
trying
though.
not to have
we're
just one
trying not
company.
to do that. We've only gotten one
we
bid,
always-
but the company that we work with, and that has only been the bid that has come through, have lost bids to other companies. So there seems to be a bit of a move afoot, which I think might be healthy for competition, which might be helpful to us.
You mean that there might be competition?
Yes,
Yes,
there
yes,
is.
there is some, which is
That's-
new to us, which is wonderful, which also might make some newer buses available to us without cost, because they're not using those buses for the town they lost. So
so do
we're
we
probably
know
going to add,
of any of these, do we know, like, these newer companies, have they?
yeah, we do, and we've
Okay.
gotten a couple calls, so
Okay.
they know we're doing it. So we're probably going to go out to bid for 3 weeks. The goal is, and part of the reason, and I know everybody is sort of anxious, and poor Christine has been the brunt of everything, but is, you want to have real numbers for the March budget, because that's when it's voted. So, I mean, we know that, Mike, and honestly, working as hard as we can there to try to get everything out. She's doing yeoman's work. So,
Oh, I don't question
yeah,
that.
no, I know you don't. It's a question of if we could find that time store, to buy a little extra time, life would be really good, but we haven't been able to find it. It's hiding somewhere.
Yeah.
But once we get
I
that
just find
done,
it
they'll be
interesting,
full.
like, just 'cause we're doing our budget, I guess, I don't know when they do their budget, right? I mean, every company has a budget to do, so.
Yeah, no, it gets intriguing. It gets intriguing, but we actually are a little bit more hopeful, and I'm hopeful that the number is too high that's in this budget, which also might have an impact. So, but we'll wait and see. So just so we're sort of clear, so version 2 budget will have the special ed teacher in it. If the town is in agreement with making those moves, and you can get that information before the version 2 comes out, we can remove that from the version 2 budget. So I'll get that list together. I'll try to get that out to you in the next day or two. And I'll make a list that will total somewhere in the range, and then the town can pick what they're comfortable with, I guess, that they'd like to have removed from the budget. The
don't-
budget's already fairly trimmed, just so you know. There is not a lot of other wiggle in here. There never has been.
So don't throw this one out, because I
Yes.
think this is a sort of important, I would like to
Yep.
show them the starting point.
Yep,
that,
so
you
here's
know.
some extra copies. Would you like some extra copies?
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do.
When we go to them, I think that's going
Yep.
to be part of it, to sort of
Yep.
say, I don't need that. I think we're going to want to say, this is where we, like, maybe
Yep.
we're going to even want to have we'll do a spreadsheet. We'll say, this is where we started, this
Mm-hmm.
includes these assumptions, and then this is where we've moved to,
Yep.
based on some discussions. This is what we've taken out, this is what we're putting there, so we
Yep.
kind of have it all out there
Yep.
to discuss. That's good.
May I bring one other thing up?
Yes, please.
So the other thing that we had talked about was a possibility of adding band to within the school day. We talked about that, and I believe I gave out, I don't think it's actually in here, but it was at an earlier school committee the last month or so, about adding a .2 instruction. We have, your current music teacher is .4. Although we don't have it in writing, I believe it's fair to share, because she has made it public, that she plans to retire at the end of the school year. That her full salary is in this budget, because we don't have an official resignation letter. We never take out a retirement, any savings. It's not a lot, it's small. But it would allow, if the committee wanted, if that number stayed in, you could put in a .6 instead of a .4, which would allow you to have band during the school day. It's
for the same cost of the
yes,
0.4?
exactly,
Because veteran to a new hire?
exactly. So, I mean, it's just something to keep in the back. I'm not saying we have to do anything. We don't have the resignation letter. It's food for thought. That person, if hired, you would post it differently, because you'd want someone who would do music as well as band instruction. So you'd need a slightly different skill set for the hire. Halifax has also been kicking around whether or not they have the capacity to add band. You could share staff. That person could go into Halifax. They would need a .4 to do all 4 grades, but I think there's a slim chance that they might be interested in trying a .2 to begin it in 5 and 6. So you could have a .6 here, and then 1 day a week in Halifax. It could be an opportunity, where you happen to have somebody retiring, which doesn't always happen, and hiring somebody with this new skill set. So just food for thought. Again, we don't have the actual retirement letter, but I feel pretty confident it's happening. I do believe mathematically, I've looked at it, that you could hire a .6 at the same cost as the .4, which would give you band during the school day. So it's, again, we left the current person's salary in here because I don't have an official resignation letter. I never take out anybody unless I have it in writing. But, that's just, unfortunately, all the pieces didn't fall into place before this meeting.
Yep.
But I just wanted to put that out there. It might be an incredible opportunity. We've been really trying. Kingston has added band during the school day. We lost band in all the buildings. I apologize, I can't remember what year it was. It was sometime within 10 to 12 years. I don't remember what year it was, but we had to cut band.
Hasn't been since my kids have been going here.
Yeah.
There's been no band.
Yeah.
With Michael did it was yours, so no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's that
Right.
it changes the pool of students who can participate, because not every
Yeah.
child has the capacity to go to Halifax for band instruction after school, which is, I believe, what Plimpton kids do.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you could have it during the school day, it's something that I think it levels the playing field for our kids, which is what we're supposed to be doing. So, just out there. You don't have to do anything with it right now, because we don't have anything in writing, but I wanted to make sure you had that information. Sorry. I'm throwing a lot at you, aren't I? You should see my list on my desk if it makes you feel any better at all.
We talked about that. The hardest you ever work is when you leave a job.
Yeah, I'm dying.
The band topic is we were able to get Michael over to Halifax, but you're right. There's probably families that
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
get their students over there at that time, and they're missing out on that.
Absolutely. No, I mean, they absolutely are. I
And
mean,
he still plays.
yeah. No, it for some kids, that's what makes their days worthwhile. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's, it's an incredible opportunity. As I said, it's just we happen to have this retirement now. It would be an opportunity to hire somebody with the skill set that was needed, also giving Halifax an opportunity to potentially share, which might increase the pool of the person if you get closer to that 1.0. So, again, Halifax hasn't voted their budget, but, I know there is some interest in the potential of the 0.8, the 0.2, excuse me.
So what does Halifax do now?
They have theirs after school.
Yeah, that's right.
Same
They do
thing,
the
yep.
same.
And Dennett
Yeah.
kids go over to Halifax. And Kingston was all after school.
There's
And
quite a few Halifax kids.
there's a lot of Halifax kids, yep. Yep, no, there are. But, again, many people remember the time when we had it during the school day. So it was, it was a budget cut that, sometimes budget cuts you never can come back from. So, it's just, it levels the playing field, because not every parent has the capacity to,
No,
to
it's
do
true,
that
and
after
it's not,
school.
Because when you go up into the middle school and you get into the high school, and they've played all the way through.
Exactly.
I mean, the students, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, if any of you went to the Thanksgiving Day parade and you saw the Pembroke band, and then you saw our band, I mean, it's just not comparable. It's our kids are as talented as the Pembroke kids. It's just they haven't had the opportunities.
Right, yeah, I agree with that as well.
So it's just, it's frustrating. It's something that's always made me sad that we had to do. So it's just, this is an opportunity we hadn't expected to have. I mean, before it was sort of like, yeah, that would be good, but I couldn't imagine it. But now it's kind of like, wow, this is actually really doable. So.
And who do you get to do 0.6 or 0.8 versus a full-time position?
Well, people do lessons. That's how they make their money. Besides, so
Okay.
it is possible, and there really aren't a lot of openings for music teachers. So I think there's a real possibility
Every
we could get somebody.
specialist in the town I work in,
Yeah.
all the specialists are less than 1.0.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
We never have a problem finding people.
Yeah.
And currently, the people who are there have been there for a long time.
yeah, they don't turn over often. So it's, as I said, it's an opportunity I hadn't anticipated. So it's just worth food for thought. And again, she's currently in here.
Right, and so
at
it's
her
not
current-
something we need to do to make the second
No.
budget.
Nope.
Okay.
No, it would just mean, leaving it as is.
I have to get a sense
Mhm.
of how that plays.
I have a question for Peter if we're ready for it. Staffing request for extracurricular after-school activities. I've seen it work well with CASA and a tuition-based after-school activity where teachers can run them and receive funds that way.
Yep.
Have you considered doing it that way versus coming from the operation budget?
Yes, as a matter of fact, and one of my teachers who's been very active in trying to get some after-school programs together had actually reached out to, I want to say PYBA, it's not PYBA, it's one of the other local town, I think it's just the recreation department. And we're gonna try to see if we can get something going. The timing is poor, I wish we had been able to do this before budget time. But I believe that we're seeing if it can be funded that way. The ongoing problem we've had right along is that we've had something in a contract where teachers can be paid a certain hourly wage, and we've never really had anything to fund it. We've never had a line item to actually fund it. So we've had teachers that have had great ideas and wanted to go ahead and do an after-school. Well, right now, we're currently doing chorus and a garden club, and we've got to get very creative in finding ways to fund it. So this is something we've talked about for a number of years, and it's something that I want the opportunity to have after-school activities. I don't want to rely upon another organization being kind to us in paying our teachers that way. I think it's just one of those things that we've talked about it for years, and it was just the time to see this might be the right time to put it in the budget. Because like I said, I've had a lot of teachers with a lot of really great ideas, and I think that we could be doing more.
Yeah, I mean, it could be cost neutral as long as you had someone to run it. That's what I was thinking of CASA. I know rec departments do it as well. But
Yeah, in Halifax and Kingston, they both have rec departments, and the teachers have quite a few after-school clubs.
Right.
Plimpton doesn't have an active that I'm aware of rec department. I don't know if there is or not, but I'm not aware that they run anything here. So like
But I
in,
do know that some school districts do it through PTOs, and CASA is the closest to PTO.
yeah,
we have.
I'm not aware of that, but, you know, in Halifax, they have like a STEM club, they have an art club, they have,
Right.
I can't remember all the other ones. In Kingston, they have a very active tech club, they have art clubs, they have, you know, just a huge number of clubs after school. And the teachers are art teachers, they're the teachers of the district apply through the youth and rec, and they're paid. It all goes through that.
Right.
So, you know, in Plimpton, you know, we've had after-school chorus. We have a great garden club. As a matter of fact, there's some pumpkin molding out in the hallway that's very cool. It's over there with some stuff. So, you know, Kara's doing, and you know, they do a fantastic job. So, you know, it's just there's a lot of interest, and again, the Plimpton kids deserve it.
It was more timing issue, Jason, where I had put this budget together. We started to get some information from the rec department that they may be able to try to fund something. I believe they were gonna try to, I think they were gonna try to put something together after February vacation to see if there was a way to make this happen.
Right.
I just wouldn't want to miss an opportunity where if that doesn't necessarily work through rec, I'd want something to fall back on.
Right, and still, you know, the funding aspect of it is the kids pay for it. And we would obviously have waivers and ways for kids to get scholarships if there was some financial, you know, issue with the family and the kid wanted to participate. But I'm glad you're looking into it.
Yeah.
I think it's great for the kids to have those opportunities.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's something that we can put into the budget, obviously, with
Yeah.
the things we're talking about right now. But I'd love to work with you if you need any assistance on it.
The wheels are definitely turning.
Okay.
And can I add to, I did speak to the town hall after the request from your teacher came in, and the town hall did suggest perhaps anything with youth and rec, if you could make that work. And they were willing to entertain the idea of having a revolving account for that. So I think there's still some things that would need to be done if that's the true path that you want to go.
That's cool. Good, great.
Yep.
And then what do? You have to have a minimum sign up for the club in order to make sure that you have the.
That's
Usually.
generally how they work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you have a few that are stronger, and those can support some of the ones that have
Yeah.
a little bit below what would make it cost.
Right, but at a
even.
certain point, it
Right.
just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Halifax does a STEM.
Yep, they do STEM. They have art clubs. They have quite a few
'Cause they get
clubs.
a lot of kids in that one, I think.
They have huge, huge.
Yeah, the
They have
outboard-
STEM right through K to 6, I think.
The outpouring we got just for the garden club
Was amazing.
They're actually doing it
Yeah.
in 2 afternoons because
Yeah,
they get such a.
actually,
good
they
stream of kids
they
that-
just gave me a picture. I can show you who's in it.
While we're doing that, there are a couple salaries here that don't have an increase.
Because we're in negotiations, it's the way we budget.
All salary increases are in the teacher's line, because
Oh.
there are some lines that have just.
So
got
we have
frozen,
we have a
so
placeholder.
We have a
Okay,
placeholder, yes,
all right,
for all of
that's
So
them.
what I'm
that's your
just
current
clarifying.
garden club, and the kids made this.
That's adorable.
They dried flowers, isn't that cute? So that's our garden club. I don't know why they thought I'd be interested in a garden club.
Why?
Makes no sense to me.
Isn't that cute?
That's the other thing. And the substitute line goes down.
And, you know, we
Didn't we
voted-
raise it?
Yeah, we did, I know, it doesn't
we voted
necessarily,
for an
intellectually.
Increase
Yeah.
for the daily substitute rate. What I have done in all of the other entities is I've taken FY19 actual,
Okay.
divided by the rate that we're paying then, multiplied the number of days, and then multiplied it times the new rate.
Okay.
19 happened to be a really low year for Plimpton,
Okay.
so it ended up being a much lower number, so I took a reduction of $5,000. That line is a tough one, that's, as you can
Sometimes
see,
it's
But
comes up and down.
you added a buffer just because we
There is
had a really low.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
It's cute, the kids made it, it's dried flowers, isn't that cute? They did such a nice job with it.
Any other questions on the budget itself?
This is the garden club.
Not right
Isn't
now.
that cute?
All right. I mean, I'll just say it again, thank you for all of the work on this. This is, for all of you, this is not easy or difficult. I mean, it's not easy, it is incredibly difficult, and to have it come in even like this is great. I mean, it's, you know, everything goes up every year, and for the track record we have had, it's phenomenal, and I think even with the proposal to add that head, I still think, you know, we can massage it to be able to get it to where it's a little more palatable. But
Agreed.
the potential costs are enormous,
Absolutely,
and that's going to happen like that.
yeah,
And we're
agreed.
going to be showing up at special town meeting looking for money to be given back to us in order to pay for it. You know, that's the, and deplete our little fund.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's one of those things that's pretty, that it's well done. So thank you with that. So nothing else in the budget? We've beaten that one
Yep.
for the last hour almost. Good. Well, thank you. Before we finish off, you know, I personally would like to thank you for 6 years of as much fun as we possibly could have doing this. And, you know, it's not always fun, but we get through it. So, you know, I wish you, even though I tell you I'm angry at you, I do wish you the best. I hope you have great adventures and lots of them around the world. We're going to miss you here.
Take care.
You've left us in really good hands, and we appreciate
Thank
that. You know, I've been serving in town government for 20 years now, and as much work as this is, you guys make it not that much work for the work. So, you know, it is totally appreciated. You know, with as much as all three of us here are on multiple boards and so on and so forth. You know, it makes it easy to be able to still do the job we need to be able to do. And so thank you for that. Thank you for being a good friend.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing everything you've done for the students.
Thank you.
You know,
Yeah.
I think, I look back over 6 years and we've done a lot of things that are
We have.
really good.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Good work.
we had a little something here for you. Just a little token from the committee.
Gardens again.
Gardens again. Can figure that.
Thank you so much.
My guess is that even though you have to come over the bridge to use this, you will, because that will give you something to do while you're off, retired, and
Oh,
we're not.
wow, very nice.
So,
Thank you.
I don't know if you
I
know
definitely-
Morrison's,
I-
but
I,
they have
yes.
they have some nice material
Yes, they
for
do.
which to play
Wow.
in your garden.
That's incredibly
And you don't
generous.
have to build
Thank you.
another building to deal with it. You have the,
Well, we're going to build a barn, and I want a greenhouse off the back.
There
So
you
there
go.
we go. Yeah, no, that's we're doing that next week. Actually,
Perfect.
we're going to go look at barns. So,
from me at
thank you
least,
so much.
thank
Very
you.
generous.
I don't know
No,
if
thank you.
guys had anything.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. It's been a treasure.
Everything you've done,
Yeah. No, thank you.
especially for the students.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely miss that story.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, thank you. Your wife said I was going to get maybe a bottle of honey. Where's my honey?
maybe.
Sheesh. I heard a rumor. No, thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you. That's incredibly generous. I am incredibly generous. Thank you.
So, you're very
Yes,
welcome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Good?
I am more than done.
All right.
Exhausted.
Thank you very much, and have a good night.